Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the special council meeting for Monday, October 27th, 2025 to order at 7:03. We respectfully acknowledge that Grand Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Wolastoqey land. The lands of the Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Wolastoq, along which live Wolastoqey, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. So for record of attendance tonight, our Mayor Merrifield, is attending virtually. You can't see her, but she is here because she's out doing work for the town in Ottawa. And we have everybody else in attendance except for Councillor Day, who sends her regrets. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'm going to move on to the agenda number 5. We do have a change to the agenda. So the motion is to remove an item because we're postponing it. So the motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield amend the agenda of October 27th, 2025 to remove items 7A, proposed bylaw changes, number PR001, ATV Club President Rob Burke, and 10A, bylaw number PR001, respecting roads accessible to off-road vehicles, first reading. These items are postponed and will be addressed during the meeting of November 24th, 2025. I have a motion. Councilor Brown, thank you. And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. So this officially becomes a one-item meeting, which is a very important one. So if there are any, next up, number 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Are there any? No. There being none, we can move on to our main item for the meeting, which is the budget presentation for 2026, the proposed budget presented by Town Administration. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Believe it or not, after 5 years, this is your last budget. And just want to congratulate you on that because you've suffered a lot of ups and downs. It was hard to look at council during that first budget when we lost $350,000. But we've worked hard to ensure that your strategic plan is fulfilled and that we're able to deliver our core services effectively. And together, council and administration have worked to both grow the town, which we can see with the tower crane, and modernize the organization where a lot of people can now book things and do a lot of stuff online with the town. Frankly, this is a budget that consolidates a lot of our changes that we've undergone in the last 5 years. It also onboards. It's going to onboard some members of our new leadership team. We have 3 that have stepped up this year. And then we're going to get a new council in June. And they need to be successfully onboarded, just as I hope that you felt that you were successfully onboarded to be successful as a councillor. Our goal is to ensure the success of everyone, and so they can experience, and that council can experience the same success you did. We're saying goodbye to 3 longtime employees. This past May, Gary Clark retired as the Recreation Director after 40 years. Succeeding him is Rick Adams, who stepped into the role, and it's been a smooth transition, and I just want to thank him for the great work that he's doing. Bruce Galt has about 12 days left. It might be 11 and a half days. I'm not sure how he's counting them now. But I also want to congratulate Christopher Crabb. He's been with the town since 2018 or 2017, and he's stepping up into the role, and we're very excited about some of the changes that he's making and the value that he's bringing to it. So thank you, Chris. And then the other thing that's happened is that our development officer, David Taylor, has gone on medical leave. And I want to congratulate Vanessa Pollock for stepping up. She's moved over to the town and she has 15 years experience. And it's been a smooth transition so far. And she's got a keen mind and a grasp of a lot of things. So welcome aboard, Vanessa, as our newest recruit. And I just want to say, both to council and to members of the public, if they haven't already noticed changes in some of these departments, there will be more, and we're excited about some of the changes that Vanessa will be implementing in the new year. that will be quite significant for both property owners who want to make renovations to their property or adding a deck or something, and as well as developers and builders. So we're looking forward and excited about the future. The other thing, Council, if you remember the first time we sat around here, aside from the Deputy CAO and myself, every face here is new. So that's in 5 years, we've turned over approximately 75% of the staff here at the town. That includes both at the leadership team, which is almost 100%. I was the first change in 2020. And then that also includes change at the works department. And I'm happy to say that this is primarily due to either retirement or leave. This has not been discontent employees and things like that. So Council, you have 75% new staff over the course of your term. And from a personal perspective, even though our Deputy CAO and Fire Chief has been here for decades now, to me, he really feels like one of the new people on the team. So this budget too is also an argument for continued change in the provincial and municipal fiscal relationship. We have to keep plugging away on this. And even though there was an announcement about extending the delay for property tax change, which that wasn't the announcement, we have to keep looking forward on that. We also need a new funding formula for provincially designated roads. I know Council hears a lot about Run 77, but at the end, Route 177, the way things are currently structured, we just can't physically keep up. We can't keep up with the money, and we can't keep up with the work that needs to be done. So that reform has to happen. We also have a financial relationship with the Regional Service Commission that needs to change. And there's been a lot of stuff on social media about that. And we're just pleased that, that there is a review both of the Regional Service Commission model as well as the rural districts too. And then the other comment I'd like to make is that the GMB, regardless if it's a Tory government or a Liberal government, really needs to collaborate more with us. Whereas we've been shocked so much about some of the decisions that I've made, such as the assessment freeze. And then before we get into the nuts and bolts of the budget, I just want to take time, Council, to thank our team. Troy Guttrow, Fire Chief and Deputy CAO, for developing a very strong fire department and then stepping in when needed as Deputy CAO. And I just have to say the Chief wouldn't be able to be as effective as he is without the leadership team around him, including Deputy Chief Adam Reed and Captain Josh Shannon. It takes teamwork to be successful, and the Chief has that, and I have that as CAO. Our Chief Finance Officer, this is your third or fourth budget, I've forgotten, fourth. And he came in here without municipal experience, and he's incredibly awesome and well-versed in the way municipalities work. And he provides us with significant insights and initiatives so that Council can make good decisions. Rock Belding, our Communications Manager, for ensuring that we are transparent. We couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we do without that transparency. That transparency allows us to focus on the work. So the new Building Inspector Development Officer, Danessa Pollock, who's already been modernizing some of our processes over in the development office. Chris Crabb, who has a very critical eye on some of the processes that we have and a vision for what the Works Department can be doing in the town. Thank you, Chris. Rick Adams, for his tireless efforts. Rick, I think, has the weirdest hours of anybody here. Maybe Alex, the Recreation Coordinator, second only to him. They're out at all nights working with community groups, and Rick, just really want to thank you and Alex for the great work that you're doing. Councils and my EA, Nicole, she's also the Assistant Clerk. She makes sure things run smoothly, and even this afternoon reminded me of stuff. And then I can't forget our admin team, so when people come into the office, they may run into Ali or Hannah at the front, and the friendly service that they provide. We can't forget about Heather, who's really made invaluable contributions to the Works Department, and how much the culture has changed there in productivity. And then finally, in a sense, our Public Works Department team. And for their tireless efforts, they go out at all hours of the night. I'm talking about Jeff, Peter, Carl, Jamie, and then of course Matt, Brandon, and Dwayne, and Chris. I forgot the other Chris. But I really have to end this list of thanks on a bit of a sad note. We had a crossing guard from the fall of 2020 until last May, and he just passed away recently. And we can't forget Andy for being out there, rain or shine, and being one of those grandfatherly figures as the kids cross the road. So here's our agenda this evening. Really, at the end of the day, what we want to demonstrate to council is that we're going to be advancing your strategic plan and also effectively delivering the core services that people expect of us. So when we get into it, we're going to review the strategic plan. It's been in effect since 2021. We've ensured that it's relevant on an annual basis. And so we reviewed it again this year, and we've developed the budget according to the review. The next council in 2026 will review what we have. They will review what we heard through our strat plan engagement session in 2 weeks, I think it is, 3 weeks maybe. And then they'll develop theirs for their goals and objectives for 26 to 30. Theoretically, it's just going to be a 4-year term. And unlike Councillor Bailmans, who's had 2 5-year terms, I think, yeah. So the value that I really want to highlight here is the one that's the largest resiliency. We've had to really roll with a lot of stuff that's been thrown our way. And council's been incredible in making what I think are good decisions so that we can move on. But we've really tried to be resilient, and our resiliency, I would say, through the good work of our CFO has been increasing. So the council priorities that we were given back in 2021 were smart growth, organizational capacity, infrastructure and climate adaptation, and community vitality. We wanted a comprehensive approach of how we're going to approach what we're doing in the town. And then council also, no strat plan is complete really without what are we trying to accomplish here? So new assessment growth goal at $200 million, we're still chugging away at that. We're working on increased transit access. Our population has grown by a couple of hundred. Through Rick's programming, people have opportunities for fulfillment, and then also people can participate in different ways with the town. While some of our goals are being achieved slower than others, we are making progress. So here's some of the things that we've done over the last 5 years, and it should be noted that when we get there, by the end of this year, council, you will have met 98 times. So I didn't count in that how many times you're going to be meeting in January, February, March, April, and May. You won't be meeting in June, so if you're wondering when your end date is, it'll be there. Anyway, so smart growth, these tactics have remained relatively unchanged as they're presented here, but the different tasks we do to accomplish them have changed, some stayed the same. But the constant theme is the need for smart growth. We need new buildings. Our residents have expressed a desire for lower taxes. We've heard at different times, well, we need a pool, we need an outdoor rink, we want better beach access, we want better road conditions. That's been a popular one this year, especially on Route 177. Unfortunately, it's difficult to deliver these without new assessment-based growth. I don't mean inflating the value of your home. I mean, we need new apartments, we need new single detached homes, we need new duplexes, we also need new commercial buildings. New growth, better yet, new growth in areas with existing infrastructure is the surest way to lower taxes and afford more things. So if I may be so bold, and I'm talking to everybody here, if you have a double lot or more, subdivide it and sell it to a new neighbor who may become a new friend. This single action, when multiplied across town, will yield results. That's the most effective way to lower taxes and buy new things. So council has given us by 2032 to have $200 million in assessment growth. We're only 22% of the way right now, but as we've said, year over year, it's kind of like an avalanche. It will grow and grow, and unfortunately, the assessment value is behind a little bit. Some of the things that we've done, going way back to that first governance training, corporate overview, are listed here. The big thing I think that we've done is that Gordian knot, that was the lack of development, Colonel Nace, has been cut, and we have a lot of new development going on there. I think that's probably the most significant thing that we've seen, that this council has seen. But we're also looking to remove more barriers to investment here by having an EIA and hydrogeological study completed for our local well water network on Colonel Nace. And then of course, as funding permits, we like to move that north. A lot of work has been done to, and patience as well, to enhance our culture, processes, skills, and expertise. My gratitude goes to the team for making it work. They've gone through a lot of change. The council heard a report at one time about change fatigue. More work has been brought in-house to enhance the level of service and reduce costs, and you're going to see more investments for that. And then the most important thing, I think, from our CFO is we have a full rolling 5-year budget forecast to ensure prudent financial decisions today and for the future. So we've been modernizing the organization and increasing our capacity so we can effectively navigate change. There's been a lot of change, and we've had to, as I said before, I think we've navigated it fairly well. Labor relations have been improved through different vehicles, including regular CIO meetings with the Works Department. Also, with council, the budget process has been strengthened. This year we did our first annual budget survey. Except for the fire department officers, there's been significant HR change due to retirement and leaves. We're trying to build up our reserves so that we can make prudent investments on a timely basis. So we have both artificial and natural infrastructure, and we're trying to manage both for sustainability. One of the highlights from this slide is that in the past year, due to a number of factors, facility use is up by 40%. Here, Grand Bay-Westfield sits between a mountain and a river. As a result, what we're doing is shoreline restoration, but we're also managing overland drainage, and council's already seen some of that plan come forward, and also you'll see some of it in our budget as well. Community vitality is probably our most high-profile strategic priority. Fundamentally, the committee, the Community Vitality Committee in the Rec Department is working to increase the number of events in town. I think there's one every month now. Engage partners and support local groups, which both the Rec Director and Program Coordinator are doing, and develop new recreational assets with our residents for all ages. I really want to commend the Community Vitality for all the work that they've done. Who can forget the fireworks this past year? We've also increased community engagement, such as the Active Transportation Plan survey, and that will help future investments for the next council. In total, the list that you just saw that I went through a little bit on the quick side was 82 things. I want to assure you we forgot some because we thought about them later, and then sometimes there's only so many things that you can list. So where are we at right now? So we had a population update from GMB this summer that estimates that we're up to 6,028. But for funding purposes, for agreements and stuff, they use StatsCan data. we're at 5,866. And we have more than 2,400 homes between Ward 1 and Ward 2. The FRC budget has been delayed till November 6th. And as I said earlier, there's a review underway with the Regional Service Commissions, and they're also reviewing the rural districts as well. Just note that the ask this year from the Regional Service Commission is down approximately $9,000. The way the budget is prepared has changed significantly since this council came into power. The big thing I want to highlight though for council is that it used to be present-oriented and reactive. I think we've made a pretty good transition where we're really trying to be future-focused. How are we trying to address tomorrow's problems today while still building for today? And I hate to say it because I think I've said it more than once, our fiscal position is fragile. And we'll be demonstrating that. We're still playing catch up in some investments, and we'll be investing in the Public Works Garage, Community Centrum. The Housing Accelerator Fund is still in play. We have recreation assets, sewerage issues, and roads to invest in as well. The tax burden, really what we want to know is how much taxes are we paying? The tax rate is really not the right question to ask. It's really a red herring. We want to know, are my taxes going up and down? And to ease the suspense, they're going up this year. But as I said before, you know, that first budget that you did, we lost $350,000. That's a big hit for a community our size. But in order to overcome that, to do what people want, we really need new growth. There's really no other way around it. But we can achieve these goals, and we'll just put our nose to the grindstones to see what we can do. So as I said, we took a big hit. We've lost about $400,000 since 2022, and it was confirmed this morning that budget, that original $650,000 that we thought we had when you did your 22 budget, that's going to be zero in 2029. So the next council will have to deal with $220,000 worth of cuts in grants. So who's ever going to be on council next time, it's going to be tough. And you know how tough it was to deal with that. Okay? Because of the assessment freeze, there really isn't any new assessment for us to speak of. Yeah, we just have to keep going with the new builds and whatnot. This is really unhealthy. The healthy ratio is 80% residential, 20% commercial. We're alone in the sense that I think this is the highest in the region. We're very close. A lot of municipalities in New Brunswick are around 90% residential, but this is something, given our proximity to St. John, will be difficult to change. But if we can get more residential growth, there will be more commercial development here because they will be chasing the money. I really wish that this graph showed that this was new assessment growth, but it's not. You know, if this was new assessment growth, we'd be talking a different tune today. But this is just how much the market has, or how much the assessment base has changed, primarily since 2021. And then in 2023, there's a big step up with the addition of Ward 1. Building permits have been quite substantial since 2022. This year, we've already exceeded 2024. So how are we going to get things done? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to members of our leadership team to talk about their departments. James, our CFO, will take over after Chris's presentation now. So I want to introduce Brock, our communications manager, and he'll present his stuff. So thank you, Brock.
Thank you, John. Good evening. The 2026 perspectives for the communications department include community engagement surveys. This year we've conducted 5 community surveys, each providing valuable feedback to help inform council and staff decision making. And looking ahead, we plan to continue expanding these engagement opportunities next year to ensure residents have ongoing, meaningful ways to share their input on key initiatives. The continued implementation of the comms plan policies. We're continuing to roll out the plan and policies related to aligning the messaging and internal coordination and supporting proactive outreach. This ensures our communications are consistent, reflective of the organization's mission, values, and strategic priorities. The emergency alert and email notification review. Together with the town's EMO, we've been conducting a review of our emergency alert system. The goal is to ensure these systems are timely, reliable, and they reach the right audience when they're needed most. And once live, the residents will be able to subscribe to receive news, events, updates, and important notices by email or text. Ongoing branding review. The ongoing branding review aims to strengthen our community's visual identity and consistency across all platforms, and we continue to explore signage opportunities, including wayfinding signage on the town's municipal heritage trail. Website enhancements. Lastly, we're continuing to refine the town's website to improve user experience, accessibility, and overall functionality. Recent updates focus on ensuring key information is easy for residents to find quickly, and we'll continue to make enhancements to keep the site as user-friendly and informative as possible. And thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you. And next up is the fire chief.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening. So for the Fire Rescue Department for 2026, one thing that we've been working on for a few years now, and we're looking to continue to expand on that in 26, is the fostering of regional collaboration in our mutual aid. So we do have a strong mutual aid agreement, and now we're working a little bit more with our partners that are closest to us to really get that strong collaboration going and basically make better services for all. Our department command structure and basically just the way that our command staff operates at scenes, we're doing a bit of a review of that ongoing, just started here in the last little bit. That will carry over into 2026 and hopefully result in a refinement and actually kind of a redo of our policies and procedures in relation to that. Enhanced wildland firefighting capacity. So thanks to funding from external partners, we've begun a community wildfire resiliency plan process. This is being done or started right now and expected to be completed by March 15th. As part of that plan, or once that plan is complete, that's what will be able to guide us to make the best investments and how we want to plan and prepare for the increasing likelihood of wildfires in our area. Water rescue training water rescue service began this year in 2025. So in 2026, we'll be looking to continue to kind of build on our first year of training and experience and kind of get ourselves to that top-notch level for that service. Incident pre-planning is an ongoing process, and that will involve going to some of the local businesses, gathering pertinent information that would be relevant in the event of a fire. Sometimes it could involve even just getting copies of floor plans so that the command staff that are outside are able to guide firefighters where to go. Inside the building, because of course, oftentimes when you're in a burning building, you can't see. And then investment in firefighter mental health. So we're looking to start a new program that is basically a service that's provided that does mental health monitoring. They also do some wellness check-ins and then have the capacity to do referrals and offer other services on an as-needed basis. So that's what we're looking for the fire department for 2026. Thank you very much. And next up will be our Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you, Troy. For Parks and Recreation for 2026, our first goal is going to be the implementation of the active transportation and trails plans. As we near the end of 2025, both of those plans will be presented to council. And after that presentation, we'll hopefully be able to move forward with allowing our residents to access trails and transportation infrastructure more often and more easily throughout the town. John mentioned on the optimization of facility usage that we've seen a 40% increase in usage in our facilities throughout this year. We continue to want to see that grow and be optimized by providing more access to residents in Brundage Point and in the fully now renovated River Valley Room, but also optimizing our green space and our ball fields in 2026 as well. River Valley Community Center resiliency. The River Valley Community Center is the largest recreation asset that the town supports, and the resiliency and optimization of that facility is very important to Parks and Recreation Department. So we'll be working very closely with the board of directors and staff of that facility to ensure they continue to operate to the best capacity for our residents. Led by Alex Clark, we will continue to boost engagement in the community through the Community Vitality Committee and different initiatives. We continue to see growth in the number of events and growth in the participation in the community in those events, but we still believe there's a lot of work to do to make this a dynamic community through enhancing different events and growing partnerships with different community businesses and community organizations. We would also going to be increasing activations and expanding on the activations we're seeing in the age-friendly community right now. That committee has grown this year. After a couple years of stagnation, we're starting to see really high usage of facilities by seniors within our community. But there's still a lot more work to do to effectively communicate with all seniors and all of the age-friendly community, and also to expand their interactions with the community to make them intergenerational. And so we're going to focus on that area this year. And then finally, one area where we would like to see significant growth is our partnerships with our local community organizations, whether it be worship sites, charities, culture groups, or sport organizations. We want to increase our interactions with those groups, increase our partnership and events with those organizations, and try to have regular meetings with them to make sure that when we expand facilities and expand usage, that we're considering their needs through that process. I'll now turn it over to our new Building Inspector and Development Officer, Danessa Pollock.
Thank you, Rick. Next, I'd like to highlight the planning and development's key priorities that will guide our work in the coming year. Our first priority is to increase building permit volumes by encouraging continued investment and development throughout Grand Bay-Westfield, specifically in the intensification areas. By improving awareness to HAF funding that is available and simplifying our processes, we aim to see steady growth in both residential and commercial construction, supporting the community's long-term development goals. Our second priority involves reviewing the types of work that currently do not require a building permit under the town's building bylaw. This review will ensure consistency in provincial standards and best practices. At the same time, we will continue monitoring unpermitted work to ensure compliance across the construction activity within the town. Our third priority, and our most significant advancement for 2026, is the implementation of an AI-based online permitting system. So the system is going to automatically pre-screen all development and building permits against acts, regulations, bylaws, codes, everything before it would reach staff. And it's going to flag missing information, incomplete documentation, or inconsistencies to ensure all applications are accurate and ready for review. By streamlining this process, we're going to position ourselves for growth. This technology will also allow us to focus on higher value work, some of which I'm going to highlight in my next two priorities. But this is a major step forward in modernization. Next priority is to increase responsiveness to all the planning and development inquiries. whether it's a homeowner seeking guidance, a builder needing clarification on something, or a developer having a major project coming up. Timely and consistent communication keeps projects moving forward. In order to foster growth, we must maintain a high level of service in this area. Our fifth focus is to improve access to all the planning and development information. So this is clear and concise information bulletins that explains our processes and permitting requirements, having application, zoning information, and mapping tools online, and then organizing these materials so they can be easily found and understood. The goal is to make the process accessible and user-friendly, helping people find the right information at the right time, so again, we can move their projects forward. Finally, we'll be supporting the town's work with climate change adaptation, guided by the Corporate Energy Action Plan prepared in April of 2025. This plan identifies opportunities for us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in municipal buildings. So in 2026, we'll be reviewing some of these recommendations against municipal work. We want to identify any energy efficient construction details or renewable energy options that we can implement into this coming work. These efforts will help the town continue their commitment to environmentally responsible. Thank you. Up next is the Public Works Superintendent.
Thanks, Tessa. So the 2026 perspectives for the Public Works Department. First one up is continuous improvements in snow and ice control. So each winter season is different. They require the ongoing evaluation of materials, equipment, and response strategies to ensure safe and efficient winter operation. This allows the department to optimize resource use and cost effectiveness. Continuous improvement on processes with the new department structure. So due to 2025, there was an admin role added. It was created, and this is to streamline workflows with the updated structure and will enhance the accountability, efficiency, and service delivery to residents. Third perspective is integration of KPIs into daily operation. Integrating measurable KPIs into daily operations will allow the department to track productivity, service levels, and progress towards department goals. Improved and standardized communication with residents. This is a big one. With the addition of the admin role, the department will have better capacity to communicate with residents regarding projects, maintenance activities, and service disruptions. This will improve transparency within the department operations. Integration of current software into daily operations. So Public Works has made great investments in various software. Giving staff access to data in the field will improve efficiencies and workflows. Oops, sorry, James, I was jumping the gun there.
You can do that,
Yeah, so when staff has the information they need in the field, it'll allow the department to provide residents with a better service. An example of technology being implemented directly in our equipment is Geotab. It's a software we've had for a while, but there's some features that we're kind of digging into. So during winter operations, staff will have the ability to access their assigned plow routes inside the equipment, and the routes will be updated as they go live. Staff will also be able to see another operator's route status without having to check in. So if someone's done their route, I shouldn't say early, if they're done their route and they can give other staff help, they're able to hop onto the app, see where that other member is, and then pick up where they need to do. Succession transition. So our Works Commissioner will be retiring in 2025 after 38 years with the town. So in 2026, the department will show continuity in service and ensure department deadlines are met. So next up on the podium, I'll pass it over to our CFO, James Barrington.
Thank you, Chris.
So in the finance department for 2026, our focus is going to be optimizing our new ERP system. So we went through an implementation this year, upgrading our accounting and resource planning system. So we're going to be going through a number of functions in 2026. We're going to be mapping out our new processes. We're going to be looking at something called iCity Online, which is a portal that residents can log into and see the status of their utility accounts. They can see their payment history, balance owing. We're looking at getting rid of a lot of paper. Accounts payable was a paper-heavy process, so we're looking at digitizing that and building in workflows to move those files around departments. And then to pull all that together, making sure we have enough cross-training and employee development. A new thing that we're implementing soon is something called DocuPet, and this is in coordination with the Animal Control Officer. So this will replace, currently if people want to license their dog, they have to come into the office, they pay their fee, we hand write a little book and we give them a tag. So what DocuPet is, it's an online service that residents can access from anywhere to register their pets. It gives them the ability to select their dog tag as a standard dog tag. If they want a fancy dog tag, because maybe they support the Blue Jays, they can get a Blue Jay dog tag with their dog's name on it for a small fee, and that gets delivered directly to their door. So it gives residents, it makes it a little bit more accessible for residents. The fees stay the same, and there's no cost to the town, so it's a win-win. And then it gives us really good database records of who has which animals within the town. So that's something that will be coming out in the new year. Okay, so that's the finance department. I'm going to stay up here and take you through the rest of the presentation this evening. So we are going to start with the sewer utility budget and then walk through capital budget and then the general operations budget. So the sewer utility is run as a separate standalone operation from the general operations of the town. It's comprised of an operations budget and a capital budget, and it is really separate and distinct from the general fund. So the property taxes that residents pay for their land or houses, that funds the general operations of the town. If your residence is connected to the sewer utility, you pay a separate fee, and that operates the utility. If you're not connected, and maybe you have a septic system, you don't pay, you don't contribute into the operation of that utility. And there's no crossover there. They are separate and distinct budgets. So the utility is comprised of about 1,500 households and businesses. There are assets of over $6 million. We have 2 treatment plants, a big one in Lagoon down on Shannon Road, and then a small facility up on McLean Road. There's over 50 kilometres of sewer lines underneath the road. People don't see that, but that's quite a network there. Almost 700 manholes, and then a whole series of lift stations, pumps, and grinding stations. So there's a lot of infrastructure involved in running the utility. It really is what we would call capital intensive. So just to give you a brief overview of the impacts that the sewer budget has felt over the last year, we have seen an increase in maintenance costs. It costs money to keep all of the equipment running. Something called inflow and infiltration. You might be saying, what does that mean? The system is supposed to operate like a closed system, like the plumbing in your house. The only things that are supposed to get in there are the wastewater that gets flushed from people's homes or businesses. But we had a study done at the lagoon to analyze what was the volume of water that was flowing in, and it didn't quite line up with the number of houses that were connected to the system. So we've conducted the study. We've had consultants conduct a study on inflow and infiltration, and that is what water is getting into the system that is not coming from people's homes. Is it coming from a downspout? Maybe they have a downspout hooked up to it. Or are there cracks in the pipes and groundwater is infiltrating into the system? So phase 1 of that study is done, and phase 2 is going to be kicking off here soon. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Reserve allocations, it's been identified that the reserves the utility holds are too low, given it has $6 million worth of assets, and there's only a few $100,000 worth of reserves. So it's been identified that that's too low. We have around $330,000 in reserve, but the goal that we've set is $1 million. Where does the money come from to run the operation? Well, 86% comes from residential homes, 8% comes from commercial and institutional, such as schools, and then 6% comes from other sources, such as prior year surpluses and interest. So one thing that residents may ask themselves when they get their bill, well, how do we come up with the number that we charge each year? So the system operates on a break-even basis. So we budget what the costs are to run the operation for a year. We divide that number by the number of people, homes, businesses that are connected, and then that works out what we call the unit rate. So each residential dwelling pays for 1 unit. If you have a multi-unit dwelling, you pay for the number of units in that multi-unit dwelling times the units. So 6 units would pay, a 6-unit building would pay 6 user units of the utility. Commercial users pay based on a formula. It's a standard formula that lots of municipalities use. For example, a restaurant would pay per square meter of seating area, and a school would pay based on the number of students and staff that are attending. On the expenses side, we see a fairly even split across administration, collection, lift stations, the lagoon, and then we do have some significant debt payments with a small allocation for capital in 2026. How does this compare to 2025, the current year? So we are proposing a $10 increase in the user rate from $380 to $390. This represents a 3% increase. So revenues are up a little bit, 2%. Other revenue is up around 5%. And then there are small increases for operating expenses and debt payments. This has been balanced out with a reduction in capital and reserve allocations. So we can see revenues and expenses are up around 2%, but we need to increase the rate by 3%. Again, we're obligated to balance the budget. We can't run it at a deficit. So the revenue that's coming in has to match the expenses that are going out. One of the CAO mentioned earlier that we have running forecasts. So a number of years ago in 2023, we developed a 5-year forecast for the utility, and then we actually projected what those rates would need to be to meet that budget, and we put those rates within the bylaw that governs the rates to give residents some predictability over the coming years of what that rate would be. So we can see that as we look out to 2029, there will be $10 increases in the user rate. As we get closer to 2029, we're going to undertake a process where we look at that budget, we're currently compiling quite a detailed capital plan and what items of infrastructure need replacing and when. And that's really going to inform us when we get closer to 2029 as to what money we need to run the utility into the future. We have a growing town. There's going to be additional people living here connected to it. We need to make sure that it has the capacity to meet the projected growth. And that's one of the other reasons we're looking at the inflow and infiltration as well, to try to tighten up that system. If we look at the reserves, I mentioned before we have $330,000 in reserves right now. We have a goal to get to $1 million. At the current rate, it's gonna take us a while to get there. So again, that's something we have to build into our next financial model, is how do we get those reserves increased. On the capital side of the budget, there are a couple of capital projects that need to be addressed. There is a lift station number 8 on Young Street that needs refurbishment. These lift stations over the years have been refurbished and upgraded, and this is the last one in this series that needs upgrading, and so it's important that it's brought in line with all the other lift stations. And so we've allocated $50,000 to do that work. And then on top of that, there's a curtain in the lagoon that separates the cells, and it is it's at its end of its life. It has a tear in the curtain. It's not affecting the quality of the discharge, but if it's not addressed, it will cause bigger issues. So we'll be looking at replacing that in 2026, and that money will need to come out of capital reserves. So that is estimated to be $100,000. And then the last area, again, I've mentioned this already a couple of times, but it's a really important project, is inflow and infiltration. So the initial study has been completed, and the engineers have identified some areas that potential inflow. So they've proposed additional work. What's involved is smoke testing. So they have a non-toxic, non-harmful smoke that they can put down into the sewer system, and then they monitor and see where does that smoke come out. Is it coming out of a pipe in the ground? Is it coming out of somebody's downspout? And then they record all of those areas, and they provide us with a report so that we can try to address those areas. It's a lot. This is a low-hanging fruit that we can pick off. So this work, a lot of the money for this work has been included in this year's budget, but there may be implications for future years once we understand the results of the study. I'll pause now for a moment if anyone has any questions on the sewer utility budget. Councillor.
How long is the lift station refurbishment? How many years is it for refurbish a lift station? How long?
Ooh, I'd have to refer to the Director of Public Works for that one.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact number that we have in our plan. This refurbishment's the panel. I couldn't give you exact number.
Sorry.
We could get that answer for you. That's all. Any other questions? Okay. So we're going to move on to just some background and how we build and put the budget together, some of the assumptions that we've used, and a little bit of the context for 2026 budget. So the process of building the budget really it's a year-round activity. We're always thinking about what is happening in the local economy, the regional economy, provincial, nationally across Canada, and then internationally in other parts of the world as well. We start off in May, mapping out the budget sheets. We meet with department heads throughout June. The sort of council strategic plan review at the end of August, where we kind of council an idea of what the budget's looking like. We consult with the public, and in May of this year, we had our first budget survey. We had over 300 respondents. We'll go through a few of those results here shortly, but that was really a key milestone in maturing our budget process. We listened to community groups. They came and presented to council one night on what their goals and objectives were within the community, and had asked the council to help support them. Tonight we're doing our public presentation. We hope people are watching at home and taking note on what we're planning for 2026. And then on November 10th, we'll come back to council with the final budget, asking for your approval. And then this has to be submitted to the province by November 15th. So the budget survey, we had over 300 respondents. There was a really good mix of the demographic of people that responded. We had 71 residents had lived in the town for 10 years or more. That meant we had a really good mix of people that have been here a while and people that are new to the area. It's good to get the different perspectives. We had 80% from Ward 1 and 20% from Ward 2, which is exactly the proportion of the population in each ward. And then we have half over 50 and half under 50. And according to Statistics Canada, 50 is our median age of the town. So that was kind of interesting how it all fell down. One of the questions we asked the public was what were their top five priorities, and it came back. It was pretty clear top 5: road safety, recreation, fire rescue services, parks and outdoor spaces, and roads and sidewalks. So we tried to incorporate these into the budget for 2026, and much of council's activities for the past several years have really been focused on these areas. And lastly, 69% of respondents agreed that the town should maintain or enhance service levels. So we really saw this as an indicator that we were on the right path. So we took all of the feedback into consideration, and then we had 4 key assumptions as we tackled the budget. We looked at the cost of providing the current level of service. So council has defined the current level of service for the community, and we carried that forward. What does that cost look like for 2026? If council has requested any increased level in services, captured that as well. We made sure that there was funding for the strategic objectives that council has laid out. And then we have the goal of providing predictable tax burden changes over time. And this is really this was another piece of feedback that came out of the budget survey, especially in the comments. People in the community are really looking for clarity into the future on what the budgets look like and what the tax increases may look like. We understand that it's been tough the last few years. Inflation was high. The cost of everything is going up. So it's important that we consider that when we pull together the town's budget. So we, much like the sewer utility, we are obligated to prepare a balanced budget. What that means is the revenues have to equal the expenses. Sometimes in private industries, you can run at a loss in the hope of a windfall sometime in the future. We can't operate like that. We have to have a balanced budget. So all of our revenues have to match our expenses. Once we work out our budget, then one of the key metrics is people are worried about or thinking about what is my tax bill. So how does a tax bill get determined? Well, what we have here is an example of a small fictitious town with 3 houses in it. So the cost to run the services required in this town, $11,250. The assessment base for the 3 houses, so that's the combined value of those 3 houses, is $900,000. So you take the cost of services, divide it by the assessment base, and you get a tax rate, in this case $1.25. So each resident would then take that tax rate and multiply it by the value of their individual house to determine their tax bill. So let's assume that each house here is worth an even $300,000. Each household will pay $3,750 in taxes. Now, let's go 40 year. Things change, some costs have gone up. So the value of the houses has not changed. The value of the houses have stayed the same. However, the cost to provide the services required has increased to $11,475. So we followed the math along. The cost of services divided by the assessment gives a tax rate of 1.275. The average tax paid by each household has gone up now to $3,825. So we have increasing costs, but we don't have an increasing tax base. Then we will see everybody's tax bill increase. But all is not lost. There is a solution. If we just had one more house, so let's assume now we go 40 years and somebody builds another house, and now we have 4 houses in our community. Well, now we have another household, we have more people, so it costs a little bit more. Maybe there's another street to plow. It costs a little bit more to provide the services. So we're now up to $14,400 in costs. But now we have an assessment base of $1.2 million. So when we divide our costs by our assessment base, we now have a tax rate of $1.20, which is lower than we were before. So now the average tax bill for each household is $3,600. So by increasing the number of households, increasing the assessment base, even though our costs went up, the individual bills for each household went down. And this is the idea that Council's been working towards for a number of years now in the strategic growth initiatives that Council has been promoting. This is where we want to get to. Any questions? Okay, so now we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the proposed budget and look at some of the numbers for the 2026 budget. So where do we get where does the revenue come from to fund the town's operation? Well, 89% comes from tax revenue, households and businesses. And if you think back to the CEO's portion of the presentation, 98% of people that pay taxes are residents. So we have 89% comes from tax revenue, and of that, 98% comes from homeowners. So that's where the money comes from. It comes from the residents.
Just one, in my remarks, I talked about the importance of ongoing fiscal reform and that relationship with the province. A lot of other jurisdictions, that 89% range between 60 and 70%. And that extra money comes from the province through their general revenue, income tax, sales tax, things like that. So we really need a different type of deal because, as James was saying, with each house paying 89% of our bill, it becomes an issue of sustainability. So we're doing what we can do to grow the assessment base, but we really need help from the province. And this is the perfect illustration as to why. You go to other provinces, the province picks up a good chunk of the bill, property tax only pays 60 to 70%. We need a change here.
Thank you. So the other 11% comes from other revenue, which is such as building permits, grants, and prior year surpluses. And then 2% comes from the province through their community funding program. John stole the thunder. The 2% in a few years' time will be 0%. I've got a few more slides on that as well. If we compare the revenue between 2026 and 2025, we can see a big jump in the previous year surplus. So this is the surplus from 2024. It was $470,000. That comes back to us in 2026 as a revenue item, which is a big jump. There's an increase in other revenue. That's a new economic development grant from Crane Mountain. And then there's a small increase in the sale of services. So the fiscal capacity funding is the grant that it used to be community funding. It's now called fiscal capacity funding that we get from the province of New Brunswick. So this was back in 2020, 2021, around $600,000. It's currently just under $220,000, and it is projected that that will be in 2029, that will be taper off to zero. So again, that's a challenge for future councils to make up that difference, which will be challenging. So that's the revenue side. If we start to look at expenses, there are really two different categories of factors that affect our expenses. We have things that we control, and then there are factors that we don't control. Unfortunately for us, there are a greater number of ones we don't control than we do control, such as the economic environment. It's challenging right now, not just regionally and locally, but across Canada. There's trade disputes, there's international conflicts. There's a lot of uncertainty in markets, and that slows business decisions, and that trickles down to us and to our residents as well. Inflation, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but it's still something that's there, and the effects that inflation has on us are a little bit different than it has on the regular consumer, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more next. The RCMP, so they provide our policing services. The RCMP costs make up about 10% of the budget, and we don't have any determination on what the budget for the RCMP services are. So a small change has a big impact on our bottom line. We haven't actually received our final cost for those services in 2026. We've made an estimate, a conservative estimate, and we expect to have those costs before we bring the final budget back to council, but just wanted to make you aware we don't have those final costs yet. And then snow and ice control. This is something that we've taken on as a town in recent years, and the Public Works Department has really done a great job in taking that on, and we've talked at length about the amount of money that saved us, but there is some risk with that now. Previously we had a fixed price contract, but now, depending on the weather of a given winter, it can drastically affect our costs. I think, anecdotally anyway, I know last winter there wasn't a lot of snow. I think I used my snowblower 2 or 3 times. However, our salt bill for that winter was $130,000 in a winter that didn't get a lot of snow. So the different type of winter can impact on our costs. A lot of the costs of snow and ice control are fixed. You know, we have the labor, we have the employees, we have the equipment, but if we have to, a lot of weekend, a lot of night storms, overtime, if it's a wet and slippery winter, there's a lot of salt, so there's a little bit of there's risk there. If we talk a little bit more about inflation, and I just want to take a few slides to walk through this because it's important that people understand inflation from the grocery store is a little bit different than the inflation that we feel as a municipality. So inflation is the rate at which the price of goods and services change. It results in a decrease in purchasing power. Essentially, you can buy less with the money that you have. It's reported in the media, and you'll hear this term, the CPI, that stands for Consumer Price Index, and I'll emphasize the word consumer. So decreasing inflation does not mean that the price of goods goes down. We've seen inflation coming out of the pandemic was really high, and then inflation has come down. That doesn't mean prices have come down. It just means they're not going up as much as they were before, but they're still going up. It's not an overly bad thing. It means the economy is growing and there's lots of activity. The Bank of Canada try to keep it between 1 to 3%, and it uses interest rates to try to keep it in that range. So historically, inflation has been for the past 25 years in that 1 to 3%. However, coming out of the pandemic, there was quite a spike. We've all got, I'm sure we've all got our horror stories of seeing the cost of different things from time to time. But it has come down. It is under control. However, it's still there. So the September rate of inflation for New Brunswick was 2.3%. So it's not zero. It's still, prices are still going up. So how does inflation impact our budget? Well, like I said before, consumer price index. We're not a regular consumer, we're a municipality. So what we did is we looked at our cost increases from 2025 to 2026 for the goods that we buy, and we calculated our inflation at 3.8%. So in New Brunswick, the CPI in September is 2.3%. We're high. And the reason for that is the types of goods we purchase are not the same types of goods that they use to calculate the CPI. So as a municipality, we buy labor, we buy fuel, we buy gravel and asphalt, a lot of contracted services, and then heavy equipment. And the heavy equipment piece is something that is going to be a challenge in the future with the talk of tariffs, and a lot of the equipment, it comes from the US, or it has components that come from the US, and we're hearing from suppliers that, you know, their prices are going up. Compare that to how the consumer price index is calculated, and they look at the cost of rent, childcare, fruit, meat, pet food, movie tickets. That's not a complete list, it's just a sample of the types of items, but you can see that they don't really line up. So what drives our inflation? What specific components? So labor is the biggest driver. So labor makes up around 30% of the budget in total. And we have union agreements that we follow. The increase for 2026 is 3.5%. So you multiply that out and it's about a 1.3% impact to the total budget. Power, so NB Power rates this year, earlier this year were up 10%. Next year, it was good to see we're only up 4.5%, but they compound, they add up, and a lot of the town's facilities are heavy users of power. Included in that is additional funding for the RVCC. They use a lot of power there, and they've seen their power bills go up dramatically. Street maintenance, we see a lot of pressure on the costs related to street maintenance. So asphalt, equipment repairs, new equipment, that's a costly activity. Talked about the RCMP, and then there's a group of other items that make up the balance. So if we look at the projected cost increases for 2025, we can see that they're all down to inflation. And what we mean by that is the cost of providing the same level of service in 2026 as we do in 2025 has gone up 3.8%, or just over $300,000. There are no increased service level items within this budget. It's the status quo. What we're doing today is what we're doing in 2026. So where have we seen these increases from? So by department, general government, protective services and transportation, that makes up the bulk of the budget. So there are some increases there. There's in the environmental development and health department, there are some succession planning going underway there, so there's some increases there, and then the other areas are pretty stable. Another way to look at it is for every $100 in tax collected, where does the money go? And again, you can see general government, protective services and transportation, they make up the bulk of it, with the other departments getting a small portion. One of the meetings earlier this year, community partners came and presented to council. I gave them a summary of their operations for the year and what they were hoping to achieve for 2026. And they asked for some funds in return for their good work. So incorporated in the budget that you have funding for some of our community partners here. Much like the sewer utility, the capital reserves for the general operations is something that we've been focusing on. The CAO, in one of his slides, had that the goal was $2 million. So we are at $2 million, but there's a lot of pressure on that $2 million. We're projecting that the balance will decrease by the end of the year by $230,000. We've had to use some of those reserves. And there are some big projects on the horizon that we need to bolster those reserves for. And it will be challenging to keep that at the $2 million level. This graph projects out the balance over time. So we are in and around the $2 million. As we onboard a new council, we're going to be looking at, is $2 million an appropriate level? A lot of the research and literature will tell you that it should be much higher given the size of our town. So we'll be working with the new council to look at that goal and potentially revise it. In conjunction with capital reserves, we have operating reserves. So capital reserves can only really be used for buying capital items, maybe a new plow truck. We are using it, reserves this year, to buy a new backhoe, which we expect to be delivered in the coming weeks. So that was a good example where the current backhoe was really end of life and needed a lot of work. It was more cost effective to use our reserves and get a new piece of equipment that didn't need a lot of repairs. So that's how we use our capital reserves. The operating reserves, there are no limitations on how we use these. We can use them to buy capital items, we can use them to fund operational items that may come up, but there are regulations on how much we can have in operating reserves. So 5% of our yearly expenditures is the provincial limit. Best practice, and the research will tell you that you really want that to be around 20%. That would cover 2 or 3 months of our operations if something was to happen to our revenue streams, and really make sure we can continue have continuity of operations. Currently, our operating reserves have a balance of $650,000, and just to be transparent, this is over the 5% limit. Of note, our auditor actually supports us in that 5% is too low for an operation like ourselves. So just to pull all that together on reserves, why are they important? Typically, it can be looked at as a rainy day fund. There's another way you could look at it, that yeah, it's good to have money in case something goes wrong, but we like to look at it as a proactive measure. We need to make sure we have continuing operations if there are challenges, but maybe there's opportunities that come along as well that we can tap into. So it's insurance, but it's also good, prudent savings to have money in our reserves, and that leads to that big word that we started with, resiliency. I mentioned this before, but there are a couple of costs that have not been confirmed. The RCMP, we've assumed a 5% increase. Just to give you some perspective, each percent deviation from this would add or subtract just around $9,000 to the budget. and the Fundy Regional Service Commission are meeting to approve their budget on November 6th. We've included draft numbers, but that budget is not finalised at the moment. I'll pause if there are any questions on that section.
Question. When do we expect the RCB, did you say that?
Typically, every year that I've been here, for the last 3.5 years, sometime between this meeting and the next meeting, we get notified. So we did. It's just one of those things. They have calculations that they have to. They get numbers from somebody. They calculate what the share for each municipality is. So it's a complicated process.
What is the percentage? What's a 650 reserves? What's the actual percentage that it is?
That's around 7. Okay. All right. So now we're going to walk through the capital budget. So we have a 5-year capital plan. We use this for planning and evaluating capital projects. We have a scoring matrix that we allocate scores to each project based on a variety of criteria, and that helps us determine what are the critical or important projects that align with Council's strategic objectives. So the 2026 capital budget is just over $2 million. We have allocations for emergency management organisation, facilities, fire rescue, recreation and transportation. The breakdown is on this graph. You can see that a good portion of it is for transportation. Facilities is quite an important one as well, and then there are smaller allocations for the other areas. So in the transportation department, we're going to continue the street improvement plan. They're also going to continue the designated highway project, which for 2026, there's a small paving portion between Miles Terrace and Inglewood, and then some engineering work on a culvert that's in the plan for 2027. A heated tack sprayer, this is used to apply tack when they're doing milling and filling operations on the roads. Right now, we apply it with rollers, but with the tack sprayer, it's much more even application. That will mean that the asphalt really gets a better adherence to the road surface. The sweeper attachment, this is a real win-win. So currently, at the end of winter, when the snow's gone, we hire a contractor to go around the streets and sweep up any of the sand and grit that's left behind. That costs us around just about $35,000 for that service. But the Director of Public Works has sourced a sweeper attachment that we can put on our loader that we own for $50,000. And then instead of hiring the contractor, we can go around with our works department when it fits the work plan, and when the snow's gone, maybe that's earlier, maybe that's later than usual, we can go around and do all that sweeping ourselves. It means that we're not waiting for the contractor's availability to do that, and then the payback period is less than 2 years on that investment. So this is this is another really good example of the investment that Council has made in people and equipment in the works department. And then lastly, a tandem plough truck. We have a unit at the moment that I think it spent more time in the shop than it did in our yard this year, so it's time to move on and get a new piece of equipment. There's new technology built into these new units. It really it makes our operations much more efficient and cost effective. We need a replacement for the fire chief's vehicle, and so we're looking at a plug-in hybrid model. We think that will work quite well for this vehicle. It sits here for a lot of the day. It can be plugged in and fully charged, and that will help us offset our carbon emissions as well that we track. In the recreation department, we're going to continue our the Brundage Point River Centre dock replacement plan. We've been allocating money for the past couple of years towards replacing the dock sections. I think we've only replaced one to date, but I do know in talking with the works department that last week they pulled them out, and because of the low water, they were sitting, a lot of them were sitting on rocks, and some of the units are quite damaged. So they will need, at a minimum, quite significant repairs for next year, if not to replace some units. So we've allocated money there so they can be replaced as needed. This is the big one. This is the siding on the Centrum. So a little bit of the history here. Late 2021, a condition assessment was prepared by an engineer. One of the big things they identified is that the exterior steel cladding is damaged and severely deteriorated in several areas, and they identified replacing that as a priority. The important part here is maintaining the structural integrity of the building. It's much more cost effective to replace the steel cladding than it is the steel frame of the building. So what we want to do here is to move on this. We have a consultant that's helping us with the public works garage. We would engage him to help manage the project, and we would put an RFP out for someone to replace the exterior cladding. Money has been allocated a few years ago, a little bit of money into reserves. We'll need to add some more money of our own, but it really is time to tackle this project. The Public Works Garage is an ongoing project. I just wanted to highlight this. So this has been money that was previously approved by council, but the building design is 90% complete. We have an architect working on that. There have been several phases of drawings that have been prepared. We're expecting an RFP for the construction phase to go out later this year, and with a completion goal of early 2027 for that building. So hopefully in the spring there'll be some site preparation work that starts, and things will keep moving along with the Public Works Garage. So unfortunately we have to pay for all these things somehow. So where would we get the money? So we have the Canada Community Building Fund, the capital renewal funding from the Government of New Brunswick, and this is a new fund that we'll be receiving money for the first time in 2026, just over $200,000. It has to be used for capital. We have debentures, so we'll be borrowing through the provincial government. There's a little bit of reserves that we'll need to utilise, and then the balance comes from our general operations. So I mentioned debentures. The unfortunate thing about debentures and loans is you have to pay them back. It makes it really convenient up front, but you have to pay them back. And one of the metrics we know that council has been following is a debt service cost as a percentage of our total expenses. So what this means is how much of our total budget is used to make loan and interest repayments. So council had expressed a desire to keep that around 10% at a maximum. Due to some cost increases for some of the items, that will be going over 10%. And we project that it will hit around 12%. There is hope there. It's all dependent on future interest rates when we eventually borrow money, but we think that it'll hit 12, but it's going to trend down after we hit that peak. I'll pause for a drink of water. Are there any questions? Councillor.
Thank you, James. I just have a question regarding the revenue sources for capital, and just in case anybody's listening at home. So these are for capital only. There is no other sources for the operational side, so this is only for capital.
Yes,
So
this-
that's why the taxes are, that's why the town is so heavily dependent, it's on the operational side, there's no other source, is that right?
Correct. We try to maximise and leverage any sources of funding that we can get. We're fortunate to be allocated $220,000 from GMB. We had our CCBF funding, and then the rest is made up from our operational budget.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it's time for the big reveal where we pull it all together and talk about what it means for the for homeowners and businesses. So just to summarise, we are requesting just over $300,000 in new funds. This represents a 3.8% increase from 2025, which we've calculated as a result of municipal inflation. If we compare that to 2025, the tax base is growing just under 1.5%. Our expenditures are up 6.4%. However, there is an increase in revenue, mainly due to the 2024 surplus that we get to count as a revenue. So there's our 3.8% in net expenditures increase. Our community grant funding is up a small amount. So the warrant, which is the amount of money we need to get from taxation, is up 3.8%. There are some regulations that we need to follow when we are compiling the budget. So we, through the local governance reform process, became a town with 2 wards. We have Ward 1, which was the original Bay-Westfield area, and we have Ward 2 up in Neripus. So when we start to look at what the tax rate might be, we have to factor the services that get delivered in each of the wards. So the costs get split up into ones that are shared, or services that are delivered in both wards, and then ones that are local, or only happen in one of the wards. For example, in Ward 1, the town provides transportation services, so we maintain the roads, we plough them in the winter, patch them in the summer. But that service in Ward 2 is performed by DTI. In Ward 2, they receive garbage collection at their curbside, so that is a unique cost to that area. So when we look at what the tax rate might be, we look at those shared costs, we divide that by the total assessment of the whole town, and we come up with a shared tax rate that both wards will pay the same. And then we also have a local component to the taxes. So what is the local cost for Ward 1? What is the local cost for Ward 2? Divided by the assessment in each of the wards to calculate what a local rate would be. Combine those rates and we get our tax rate. So for 2026, what does that look like? So for Ward 1, there's a shared rate of just over 86 cents. And that's across Ward 1 and Ward 2. The local rate for Ward 1 is 38 cents, and in Ward 2, 11.5. And this is where some of the regulations start to kick in. In Ward 2, they're only permitted to have a 5-cent increase in the taxes. So if we were to combine the shared and local rate, it would exceed that 5 cents. So it gets adjusted down to just over 79 cents, which is 5 cents higher than it was in 2025. And Ward 1, their rate is 1.275, which is 2.5 cents higher than it was in 2025. So what does that look like? That's a bit of a complicated table, but what does that look like to an individual homeowner in each of the wards? So in Ward 1, let's take an average house of $300,000. The value of that house on average, based on the assessment data, would increase around 1.5%. So then we calculate our tax bill based on our new rates, and we have an increase annually of $133, which would work out to around $11 per month for an average household in Ward 1. So that would be a 3.6% increase. In Ward 2, they have the average assessment increased a little bit lower, around 1.3%. We multiply the tax rates and we get a tax bill. So we have an annual increase of just under $200, or around $16 a month for a Ward 2 resident, and this would represent a 5.7% increase. Are there any questions? Councillor?
In regards to Ward 2, we knew since government reform that we were going to be increasing several years out. So with a cap 5 cents each year, when does that end?
Good question. From what we can see today, I can't see what's going to happen for certain into the future. It will be 3 to 4 years.
3 or 4 years more.
3 to 4 years.
And, sorry, if I can just ask another
Absolutely.
part of that. And I did see when I was reviewing the draft budget that the garbage collection has increased a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that that's also a reflection, is part of the increase as well. That's all I can.
CEO?
So Councillor, if you look at the adjustment, this is 0.1857.
Divide that by 5 cents.
Adjustments each year.
Okay,
You figure out how long it will take.
okay,
That's the key
okay,
number that
that's,
you need.
okay,
Yeah.
makes sense, okay, thank you.
Ward 2 still has a garbage pickup, so it does, for inflation for a great deal of also Ward 2, right? So they're not, you have free garbage pickup, we don't, so it still reflects a good rate.
Councillor?
Just for clarification, so you're asking for $305,000 more than last year. And this is just to keep the level of service the same as last year?
Correct.
Just to keep status quo?
Yep.
And that's due to the property tax freeze? Is that?
The property tax freeze doesn't impact our costs. They're really two separate things.
Okay.
So we look at costing out the budget, what does it cost us to do in 2026, what we plan to do in 2025. And then once we get to the bottom of that, we get the assessment numbers from the provincial government. We got them a few weeks ago, and then we take that number, take our cost, we divide it by that assessment number, and that gives us the tax rate. The key thing to focus on is what is our budgeted costs increasing by. That's the metric we need to be measuring ourselves by.
So, Councillor, the assessment freeze is really a fiction. Our costs are our costs.
Right.
The assessment freeze is going to affect us down the road on affordability for residents and other things. But costs are our costs. And I don't want to really say a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, I think I was reflecting with the CAO today that this is the 4th budget that I've been a part of, and it's the smallest increase that we've had. 3.8% is the smallest increase in the past 4 years. But it's the first time that tax rates have gone up because assessment values have been increasing, the tax rate has been coming down, but now we're seeing an increase because it really is that's just the number that we use to fund the operations.
So if we go back to my comment about fiction, if the assessment freeze wasn't in place, the tax rate would have gone down.
Right.
but everybody's property tax, you know, we would collect still 3.8%,
Right.
3.6% from people. You know, so this is where
Yeah.
don't understand this, a certain rationale regarding the assessment fees.
Coming out of the same pocket, it's just name something different.
Yeah, the costs are what the costs are.
And I think too, I really like how you've done this to keep the increase as low as it is, and people might be wondering because you slides where I really like 2 of them, 3 houses, when it becomes 4 houses, people's rates drop, or costs drop, but the tax rate can drop. But we've had a lot of building around here, so we can see there's a lot going on, but it hasn't impacted the assessments yet because they're just starting. So I think that's, if people are seeing, yeah, we're getting the more houses spread out, but we're not seeing that yet as on the revenue side. Is that the correct way to describe it?
Yeah, I think it's mainly the apartment buildings that are lagging the most behind, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's for, you know, the assessment agency. But also, many of them are eligible for half,
Yes.
and we provided incentives for those as well. So when we talk, we're only 22% towards our goal. As I said, it will be accumulating.
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
So in regards, again, to Ward 2, 2 parts. First part, how many more houses would we need in order to see a decrease? Is that like
Okay.
maybe 2 subdivisions
can't.
or?
I would have to crunch the numbers on that, Councillor. I couldn't give you a number off the top of my head.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is I'm just sitting here doing math, and over 3 years at 5 cents each, that's another 15 cents added to 41 cents we pay the province. That puts us at $1, or Ward 2, at $1.35, which is more than hopefully your rate gets to.
You know, James alluded to what we see now. What I've not clearly heard from the province, what happens when the tax rates become the same? I've not heard that. I've not had colleagues where the tax rates have been the same yet. So I think, I don't know, like, I don't recall either one of us hearing anything when it happens.
No, they provide us with a rationale and a framework to work through. We've worked through that. It's really dividing up those costs between the local and the shared. There's some services that Ward 2 residents receive that Ward 1 don't, and they pay for those services. So that's what really kind of drives that differential.
And we're still concerned that, you know, the roads, you know, DTI was over in order to resurfacing some of the roads. And there's not been communication about what the plans are regarding turning those over to municipal responsibility. So I've heard different stories about when or if or why they haven't been turned over. I don't know if any of those are true, but that is an issue that we're concerned about, that, you know, the province's assets will quickly become our liabilities. And then what happens with those transportation costs then? Likewise, with the water and wastewater system over there, the province has not been communicating what their intentions are with there. You know, I did have an invitation to meet, which I wasn't able to take up, and I need to relook about discussing the future of the water and wastewater system. So, I'm sorry, Councillor, what we know now is it'll take 3 to 5 years, and the rates may be higher, but we've not been.
You've not been given any other information.
That's correct. So we can't really answer your question.
Okay. Thank you, because I know I'll be asked, so.
Yeah, and we want to encourage people, and, you know, Brock will be posting a thing tomorrow, I think, asking for feedback. And feedback includes questions. Ask questions, you know, send us an email, talk with you, and then you can phone myself or James up, and we can try and do our best to answer them at our next budget meeting, or our next meeting, November 10th, to address those.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question, James, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but going back into your number crunching, but that 41 cents that Ward 2 pays for the DTI, has that been pretty consistent over the last year over year, or has it increased?
I haven't seen it change in my time here. I don't exactly know the history. My understanding is it's not changed in a while.
I've been told that hasn't changed in a long time. And, my concern is that it's lost a lot of purchasing power over the years. One, when, the assessment base was stagnant, for lack of a better word. It may have been possible then, but construction inflation has increased. With recent increases in the assessment value, where that fiction becomes more real is when that tax rate hasn't changed in decades, so it really is a tool for the province, but not for us. But I suspect it's still behind. Council's experienced with us our disappointment with inflation in road construction as an example. I was just reading recently, construction wages have increased approximately 25% since 2020. So I don't understand how the 41% council were to cap pace just with inflation.
Thank you. I share your concern. If the actual cost that BTI is paying for their work in Ward 2 is much higher than 41 cents, and 3 or 4 or 2 or 6 years down the road, our municipality does have to take over that particular extra expense, it would be nice to know what the real cost is. And something tells me that 41 cents consistently is not a true number.
We don't know what the true number is, Councillor, sorry. We have prepared internally, if those assets become our liabilities, what are some of the conditions that we would like in discussions with the province? Because to hand them over to us, I think will be quite a burden, and that concerns us. But we have had internal discussions so that we are ready if those discussions come forward. What will we be requesting? I think that we should be talking with the province from an area of facts. So we have been driving around Ward 2, trying to assess. We're aware of the puddle, Councillor, by your house as an example. And then, of course, there's the lagoon in that condition. And then the cost of that and how much revenue has been raised over the years towards future infrastructure work. And I don't mean just the lagoon or the pumps for the community well, but what about the pumps underground? I mean the pipes underground as an example. I'm very concerned that it's been underfunded and underinvested. So these are liabilities that we cannot afford.
Thank you.
There is a recommendation. I would just like to mention that we are accepting feedback for the next week. So if any residents who have any questions on what they've seen tonight, either live or recorded and in the materials that will be on our webpage, please do reach out to the town's email account. It's important to have community engagement, and we welcome it. Thank you.
Motion on this is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield refer the presentation to the council meeting of November 10th, 2025 for decision. Motion. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. And I just want to mention again, I should mention how pleased we were to have the over 300 people respond to the survey, because this was done with input from all staff and with input from the community as well. So thanks, James. I just really appreciate it. Anything else?
Any other questions or comments about the budget? We did have some, but are there more questions or comments regarding the budget?
So that's it. The next motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:52. Motion. Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.